I honestly believe that happiness has been hijacked. What do I mean by that? I think that happiness has been kind of twisted and devalued, and the definition has us barking up the wrong tree, chasing after happiness when what we're chasing after isn't really happiness at all. It's kind of a counterfeit. And so let me start with two stories. So the first is I grew up in Texas, and the place that we lived, we had just miles and miles of wilderness behind our house. Little barbed wire fence separating us from our yard, and then miles of that we'd often cut through, my brother and I. And we spent so much time exploring. We'd look for arrowheads. Sometimes we'd find a little pond. This one time we found like an old crumbling gas station and brought a bunch of cans of oil home and ruined my mom's table with them. One time we got stuck in a snowstorm, and we had to kind of huddle in this giant silo until we realized we were in our neighbor's backyard. He had kind of a junkyard and just a couple of houses over, but kind of the whiteout of the snow left us lost. And just had so much fun for years, doing all those different things and finding different treasures and things. The second story is about fireflies. So, in the South, there are fireflies. In Iowa, when I lived there, there were fireflies. Super fun to catch and really cool. And sometimes what you'd do is you'd gather a bunch of them and you'd stick them in a jar, right? Make sure to poke holes in the top. And then you'd have your own little firefly lantern. And what I think happens a lot of times with happiness is it's like that firefly jar, right? We try to put happiness in a little jar and then carry our own little happiness lantern around, right? It's gonna light up every situation because I captured it, I have it, and it's gonna stay here. And so, I don't think that happiness is something that we can capture in and of itself. It's something that we chase for. I think it's the byproduct of doing certain things. I think happiness looks a lot more like that exploration, that adventure that I did with my brother. Right? There were fun times and there were scary times. Right? Like we were lost in a snowstorm, and there were times that even hurt. Right? My brother got bucked off a donkey that he tried to climb on once, which was hilarious. But we weren't thinking about being happy as we were out adventuring. We were just living life. I think of it as happiness in action, right? We were engaged in what we were doing. We were spending time with one another. We had the sense of adventure, and just when I look back on that, I look back with so much joy and so much happiness and so much gratitude that we just got to enjoy the simple pleasures of our summer days. And so, I'd ask the question, what if happiness didn't have to be dependent on whatever circumstances that we often, make this box around happiness? My life has to look like this so that I can be happy. And if this isn't in place, or if this isn't in place, then I'm unhappy. What if happiness wasn't dependent on things like the weather, or the size of our bank accounts, or the shape of our bodies? What if it had very little to do with circumstance? And what if it had to do way more to do with the focus of our lives? What if happiness looked like engaging in life with a sense of meaning and purpose? What if happiness looked like investing in quality relationships? What if happiness looked like being open to new ideas and new experiences? What if happiness looked more like childlike wonder? A mind and a heart primed to learn and to grow and to experience, in awe of the simple beauties all around. I don't know that happiness is just one thing, but I think so much of it is framed by our perspective, framed by our focus, framed by what's centered in our lives. And so looking at those things, right, purpose and relationships and openness to experience, maybe happiness in action is what that looks like, right? Doing all of those things, living our lives with the circumstances being whatever they are, accepting both the good and the bad, the really fun and the really hard of life, and integrating all that into one whole. It reminds me of, if you've seen the movie Inside Out, and Joy is obsessed with not letting sadness touch any of her memories, right? Like, don't do that, get out of here, you're messing everything up. And it's only when those two are integrated, right, the joy and the sadness, does that, solve the problem, right? I think it's so easy to get caught in toxic positivity, and there's a lot to be said for the power of positive thinking and for things like that. But when it causes us to try to run away from uncomfortable emotions or ignore what life is offering just as it is, I think that's when it can become toxic. And so just integrating the whole of life, the good and the bad, and the ugly, the sad and the joyous, and bringing that experience together, I think is what helps to create happiness in the end. And in that case, like, happiness can continue to be lived moment to moment to moment, instead of being this just ephemeral thing that I'm always trying to catch. It's a life lived in action, investing in our relationships with others, and investing in improving ourselves so that we can continue to learn and to grow and to experience throughout our lives.